Hi, I'm Pari. Welcome to Living Your Best Life with Eddie Stone, founder and CEO of Touchstone Essentials. Hello, Eddie. Nice to see
Hello,
you here.
Pari. Nice to have a chance to talk to you. I think it's been a couple of weeks, so
Yes.
appreciate your schedule working and my schedule working. And our audience probably doesn't know this, but you got up very early today to be
Yeah,
able to
correct.
do this. So thank you for doing that.
No, to have you on the show is, very my pleasure too, and good for everyone because many people are happy with the information that you share with them. It's very helpful and very useful for life. For health.
I think you have one of the best audiences I ever talked to. They certainly have some fun things. They hit me on the DM, which is kind of interesting, right? That people use the direct messaging on mostly Facebook. I get a few on Twitter, but mostly Facebook. So that's a fun way to communicate.
Uh-huh. And today, Eddie, what are you going to share with us? Interesting subject.
Well, I went back and was sort of looking at some of the questions and things we've gotten over the past month. And it's pretty clear to me, people go back and they watch, some of the older videos we've done. There's a lot of people asking about CBD. And I know we've talked about CBD or cannabidiol, for those that don't know, a few times, but I think I better understand some of the things that people are confused about. And mainly, I think people want to understand a lot of the benefits. I was talking to someone earlier today here in the States, and the person said, everywhere I go, people talk about CBD, right? And there's always this question of, is it marijuana? Will it make me high? Is it legal? And of course, the legal question is individual to each country. So most of Europe, it's all worked out from a regulatory standpoint. Japan, in the United States, there's a few states that are still trying to figure some things out. There was some trouble with the banking system and how it handled credit cards. That's all getting worked out. But the bottom line is, it's really so popular that all these governments really have to find a way to work it out, because at this point, it's not just that it's not a fad; it's really a phenomenon. I mean, that's kind of how I see it. And I know the reasons why. I mean, this is what the person asked me today. Says, well, why is it such a big deal? And I said, because it works.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, it really works. And for people that are health conscious and people that spend money already, maybe on supplements, or they spend money on yoga classes or going to the gym or buying organic foods, people that are investing in their health, they're always looking for answers. And there's enough, while research is still coming, right? In the United States, particularly, the way that the laws governed hemp or CBD oil, it really fell under the governance of, say, marijuana, which was considered a drug, an illicit drug. Because of that, there hasn't been a lot of institutional research. And in the United States, a lot of times that research is done by universities. It's really one of those first lines of it. There's some private research, but universities, and then of course the government itself does research. I'm sure some of that's true of how it works in Thailand. I know it's true in many countries, but because of this thought that it was marijuana and it wasn't separated in the minds of the regulators, there was limited research. But we know now that really there's just so many possibilities. And so people are really excited. They want to understand more about it. So one, to answer that first question, is not marijuana. So really the way to think about it is this, and these terms and things I'll use, they're really governed in the United States. And I think for most countries, they kind of separate it this way. If it has 0.3% or less of THC, and THC is the cannabinoid that will intoxicate people, right? In the same way that alcohol leads to intoxication, THC, when people smoke marijuana, consume marijuana in some form or fashion, that gives them that feeling of intoxication. Now, there are some other medicinal benefits and some nutrients that go with that, but that's what makes people high, right? You hear this term high. And so if it's 0.3% or greater, then the US government says that's marijuana. In Europe, I think it's 0.2% or greater. So it varies, but that's kind of this borderline. And then if it's 0.3 or less in the States, 0.2 or less in Europe, then it's called hemp. And the consideration there is that really wouldn't get a person high or intoxicated, right? And you're at that point, they really believe, okay, you're focusing on the health benefits. And so with that, we're beginning to understand some of the research. And really what's fueled all this is starting back in the 1990s, in the scientific community and in the medical community, they begin to identify, okay, why does THC make a person high or intoxicated? And what are these other attributes that you find in hemp that are considered medically beneficial? Because even though we didn't have this sort of large regulatory recognition or in the larger scientific community till the 1990s, there's certainly a lot of other people in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s even that were studying, what are the properties of marijuana that might be beneficial. And there were a lot of people, even in the 60s and 70s, that believe that someone, for example, getting treatment for cancer, if during that treatment they had access to marijuana, it would help them manage the nausea or the upset stomach that often comes from these harsh treatments of radiation and other things that they do to treat cancer. And so that's one thing that they learned, but they also realized that there were other positive attributes, but it didn't gain sort of this national recognition. And really in the States where this bigger recognition started was in 2003, CNN, there's a popular doctor on the CNN cable network named Dr. Sanjay Gupta. And he did a story about a little girl that had been dealing with, her name was Charlotte. She was dealing with all these seizures to no success, like 300 or so grand mal seizures per day. I mean, this is really a terrible, you can't have a life that way. And the family got a hold of CBD oil, hemp oil with CBD in it, and it really made this massive difference. And so that really was a clue for people and brought a lot of attention to what was the potential, the properties, and the health benefits of hemp oil, CBD oil. So this is sort of how this whole thing came together. And I know people want to know that background. And now, I mean, in the States, not only is it in tincture form, you find people putting it in soft drinks. I've seen it in beer, but there's there's sort of three ways that you can consume it. You can ingest it in a beverage or a food. The challenge with that is it's poorly, the impact is slowed because of metabolism. If you ingest it, the body has to metabolize it before it can get into the bloodstream, start to affect the cells. And for the most part, it takes probably an hour to 2 hours for people to feel the impact of having CBD that's in a soft drink or a food. And that's just about like you would think of for someone that has THC when they're trying to get high, if they're eating what they refer to as an edible. It's not uncommon that people would say that took an hour or 2 hours for it to kick in, so to speak, right? You can vape it or smoke it, but I'll be upfront with the audience. I don't believe in that whatsoever. I think your lungs are there to process oxygen, and we're all better off if we try to avoid pollution and we try to avoid smoke and let our lungs do their job by processing oxygen. So no doubt if somebody smokes marijuana or they smoke CBD or they do it in a vape, the impact can be quicker, but I don't think that's what people should consider. And then there are tinctures, or basically preparations that you essentially put under your tongue so that they would absorb mucously. And then that's a really quick way for it to get into the bloodstream and the areas you want to affect. And the better that tincture, the better prepped it is. For example, we have a proprietary process to nano-size the properties of that CBD in our tinctures we sell. So it's not uncommon to have somebody say in 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, they can feel the impact of the CBD. And that's what you would expect if you're taking it by mouth, a properly prepared product that's nano-sized. And so that's sort of the range of how people can do it. Now, to be clear, the fastest way we could possibly know is if you took it intravenously, but now we're talking about a whole nother situation dealing with doctors and medicine. But here's what drives this. And this is interesting to me, Pari. And if you're an entrepreneur that's listening to this, you can't ignore these numbers. There'll be in 2019 in the US alone, there'll be well over $1 billion worth of CBD products that are purchased and consumed by excited consumers. One of my favorite economics authors, the late Dr. Peter Drucker, talked about that growth magnifies and multiplies efforts. And we see that as a company, just our offering of products, the CBD products, just the growth of that whole thing, right? It's this whole rising tide lifts all the boats. So it's really fun to see. So if you're an entrepreneur, something to investigate. But here's what's really driving this whole thing. You've got people every day talking about it being this stress buster, right? Kind of bust this stranglehold of stress people have in this, the modern go go-go world, right? We all have our smartphones with us all the time. And I sort of long for the days 30 years ago where I got in my car and there was some peace of mind. I might listen to the radio, but I didn't have my mobile phone to worry about. And people drove more safely. God, I just hate all these people driving while looking at their phones and texting. So, I mean, it creates stress, and, financial markets and everything is just 24/7. The news is on 24/7 in most countries. It's just really pressure filled. And so, we do feel stressed as a population in the world. It's a thing, right? It's the pace of modern living. And inflammation. The other thing we know unequivocally about CBD is it will tamp down temporary inflammation. Well, man, that's got all kinds of attributes to it, whether that's, if you can control inflammation, you can control some of the risk factors associated with cardiovascular disease, blood pressure, for example, even risk associated with diabetes, because when the body is inflamed, it's not efficient in how it processes sugars. And there's even a lot of discussion about excess amount of inflammation would make a person more vulnerable to cancer, because chronic inflammation can damage DNA. And when DNA mutates, now we're starting to talk about cancer. So, stress busting, tamping down inflammation, free radicals, free radicals that we're exposed to. We think about antioxidants. Well, CBD, properly prepared CBD has antioxidant properties. So when you buy CBD, there's sort of three types that you can buy. One is an isolate, which means they've isolated the cannabidiol, which is what CBD stands for, from the other cannabinoids, which are approaching about 100 cannabinoids identified in a proper plant. You isolate that out and you sell it singularly. The problem with that is these things work in concert, right? It's like, if you go to a concert, it has one sound if there's a couple hundred people in the orchestra, and it has a whole different sound if that cello's over by itself, right? And so when you isolate the CBD, this is the problem. And oftentimes this is a reflection of somebody buying a cheap product, because isolate's cheap. And so then people will use it and they go, oh, it didn't work for me. And it's like, well, it does matter the preparation, right? Because you need all these ingredients working together. So you've got that. It's got heart protecting qualities that go with that, right? As an antioxidant, free radicals, dealing with oxidative stress. I'll tell you, the first thing that I really noticed was the sleep. Mm-hmm. I'm a person I'm a little hyper, right? I get a little fired up, and I've done calls like this several times a day, and I'll have another call this evening before I go to bed. It's what I do. It's what I love. But you get a little excited when you're talking to people, and then you try to lay down. It's like, oh, I can't close my eyes. And so for me, I could have a glass of wine, but that has its own sort of, over time, that can be negative, and you gain a lot of weight, if you drink too much wine or beer or whatever it happens to be. And so CBD oil for me, first thing I noticed was 5 to 10 minutes, man, I was really in a good place to fall asleep. It's not like a sedative that'll knock you out, but it really helps to bring some balance. And I'm going to come back and talk about that in just a few minutes. For me, a joint discomfort, for anybody that's been in our audience for a while, they know I had a terrible accident for a 56-year-old man on a skateboard last year. Shouldn't have probably been skateboarding like I was. And my elbow, the humerus shot out of my body. It was just terrible, right? So I had a lot of pain, and the way I chose to manage it was to use a lot of CBD instead of the opioids, which have side effects that I didn't want to deal with. And I'm not going to say that it made all the pain go away, but it made a real impact, and I was able to manage it. And it's not unusual to hear that with people, that kind of discomfort, they get relief. Central nervous system, people dealing, stress can be stress based upon a moment, but it can also be because people are just nervous and they struggle with that. Exercise recovery, it helps out with people as their body tissues and things are repairing after exercising. So it's really, I think of it as this miracle healing plant. And I've been involved with this industry for some 30 years. And so I don't casually say something like that. I just really have this massive belief. Most of what we sell are zero THC products. You would refer to them as broad spectrum or full spectrum, just depends on terminology people are accustomed to, because in this situation, we've removed just that one cannabinoid, which is THC. We also have a product called Advanced, pretty serious product that has we call it THC compliant, the 0.3%. Part of the reason we have that is we know some people really react quite positively to just that minor amount of THC in there. And there are some studies and research going on now that believe a little bit of THC will help to influence and improve the impact on discomfort and nausea. So, we choose to offer both. I mean, for people that want to look on our site, and you can just make sure you're buying from a reputable company. Look for people that have third-party labs. Look for people that have good reviews from consumers, so that you know what you're doing, and make sure you've got a guarantee available to you. We do everything 100% guarantee, but we've got all the way from a 250 milligrams per bottle for pets. Very popular with pets, very popular with cats, particularly, people with cats. And we've got a 750 milligram that I kind of call the all day product with no THC. We've got a 1500 with no THC and a 1500 with THC. That's for a more robust reaction. And then we've chosen to offer a more significant product called 3000 for people that really have some struggles. And that's very popular. So we're proud to see what happens there. There are other products out there. We offer a clean product, non-GMO, very specific proprietary genetic strain, CO2 extraction. We got all the bells and whistles, because here's what's at stake. The way that CBD works with the body, and if people can kind of get a quick grasp of this, in your body, in all of our bodies, we have an endocannabinoid system. Mm-hmm. And the way to think about this, it's almost like this system of communication between the mind and the body. And if your endocannabinoid system isn't functioning properly, you can get out of balance, and you can get out of homeostasis. And this endocannabinoid system, it has a number of receptor sites that are involved with it, but the two primary ones are CB1, CB2. You principally think of CB1 as operating primarily in the brain and the spinal column. And CB1 is mostly impacted by THC. So people that get high speak of things like, I've got a head high or a body high, right? That's sort of what's happening there. You can't get high or intoxicated off of CBD. And in fact, WADA, which is the National Olympic testing body, has now said that CBD is okay. Just got to make sure people are buying it without THC. And that's because CBD impacts primarily with CB receptor 2. And CB receptor 2 is in our bodies, in our cells, literally everywhere. And there's no question, there's a lot to be learned about the endocannabinoid system, but it sits sort of at the top of a cell and aids in facilitating proper communication. Now, we call it an endocannabinoid system because not only is there this system of communication of receptors, your body produces cannabinoids. That's why they're called endocannabinoids. Coming from a hemp plant, we call it a phytocannabinoid. The good news is they function the same. And you might imagine, right? Your body can get out of balance, modern diet, you're getting older, whatever. You don't have as many cannabinoids as you once did. So your endocannabinoid system suffers. And when it suffers, it doesn't react properly. So it doesn't function in the way that it should. And so you can aid it or help it by taking phytocannabinoids, right? This is the whole idea behind it. And the impact areas are central nervous system, which is super critical, your immune system, your endocrine system, your circulatory system, muscular, skeletal, respiratory, lymphatic, digestive, literally all your body systems interact with your, basically the endocannabinoid system in the body. This is a critical point of communication. And so when you can supply a phytocannabinoid in there, that's a good quality product, then it naturally searches for the opportunity to create balance and pull things into balance and create homeostasis. And so your digestive system's got an opportunity when it's in balance to function better. Your immune system, your respiratory system, your lymphatic system, everything is going to function better. We have a lot of work to do in the scientific community to fully bring all these pieces together, because what I'm describing is a complex series of body functions, and I'm simplifying it for our discussion, but I think it's pretty easy to kind of digest that's why this works. So if you think about it, think about this crazy world we live in and all these things, that for people to find something that's natural, that also has antioxidant qualities, by using a full spectrum like we do in a CO2 extraction, we maintain the flavonoids and the terpenes. Terpenes are what give it odor. If you're using essential oils and you're smelling something like bergamot or whatever it happens to be, the terpenes are where that comes from, and that can also affect your health in a positive way. And so there's just so many wonderful attributes. And so I'm a massive fan and happy to help provide people education on this, because at the end of the day, you think about how your immune functions, just fatigue even, or the function of your metabolism, or, you know, it has neuroprotective qualities, right? Well, think of all the brain diseases that we're really struggling with right now. The mental fatigue and the focus can improve mood. I think I saw that the World, get my words out, the World Health Organization says the number 6 reason for people to go on disability has to do with the management of anxiety and stress. And so it can be debilitating, right? Probably every one of us at some point in our life found ourselves in such a stressful situation where we're like, oh, I feel paralyzed, right? And so when you can find help, it's just a really big deal. And here's what's even, I'm in love with how our bodies function and the brilliance of it all. And the fact that with knowledge, you know, pushing back on some of those ultra processed foods that you and I talk about, and trying to get good sleep and get your head on straight, you know, your spiritual side of things, and sleep, exercise, all this stuff, you know, you can function better. Well, that's what can happen here. And the brilliance of the endocannabinoid system is, once the phytocannabinoids that you've put in your body, once they're sort of no longer necessary, the body has natural enzymes that break them down, and they just simply metabolize. So, you know, you can't overdo it, right? It'll just, you know, get rid of what it doesn't need. And so it's just fascinating. And I'm super excited to be able to work with it. And for all those that are asking questions, I don't get tired of them. I'm just this massive advocate, you know, between this and the greens and the detox, and there's a lot of sort of things we can solve. So that's what I wanted to come today, and hopefully in a broad sense, so those general questions I've been getting, that'll sort of help people with that.
You know, I think it is very important for health product. You should choose the company that you know, reliable, trustable. You know, like me, like I do a video like fashion clothes, I can go everywhere. You know, can buy a cheaper one to wear one twice. But for health product, it is very important to find a very good company, right? With a good ingredients.
I agree. You know, there might be a few things in life you would skimp on, but I'm really surprised if people choose to skimp on their health, right? You got one body, one life, you're stuck with that thing from the day you're born. And so, man, try to do everything you can to treat it well. And that's why I think it's important to pay attention to quality things and put quality stuff inside the body.
Uh-huh. And it is very good in your country. It's more open than here in Thailand. It's just like the beginning of exploring, I mean, open to people. So we are, I don't know how many steps behind you, but people in your country or other countries are luckier than Thai people for now.
Maybe in some ways, you got some things that I feel like you're pretty fortunate about, but you'll catch up. No question, Thailand
Uh-huh,
will catch up because there's no way to stop it. It's too good,
uh-huh.
and it'll be everywhere before you know it.
And it is best, I think, if we cannot replace, but to take less medicine, when we have like inflammation, we have symptoms.
I think anytime you can use less of what I would refer to as Western style prescription medications, which can serve a great role and save lives. Don't get me wrong, but if through food, diet, exercise, and proper natural supplements, if you can replace them, I think your physician, your doctor would tell you that's a good idea.
Okay, Andy, thank you so much for sharing with us CBD oil tonight. So we see you again next time.
Next time, Pari, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.